everyone. Welcome to Stephanie's MarshStream. I'm Stephanie. The real reason we're here is for me to interview the brilliant, the wonderful, the amazing friend and creative spirit, Ron Jones. Hello, Ron Jones. How are you?
Hi, Stephanie. Great, thank you. Nice to meet like this.
Yes, there's so many people come in and I have to turn it off because my eyes are like going to the wrong place. Yes, so nice to meet like this, which brings me to going way back in the Marsh history, although not necessarily your history. What did you do? How did you get involved with the Marsh? And do you remember how many years ago it was?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. I think it was Club Solo, David Ford, and the idea of telling your stories. But that history is extended to, I remember Michael Rice and I performed for your wedding.
Indeed.
It goes way back, girl. And then we have friends internationally that have been a part of our lives. So
right.
we're lucky.
Yes, you introduced me to the director of my very show from Barcelona.
Yep.
Although I don't think he's here. I thought he was going to join us, but maybe he's joining us on Saturday night. So Ron, so let's go through a little bit of that history. You did the show with Michael Rice. Was that Say Ray? Was that the first one?
Yeah, that's a great a story. A mentally disabled man gets transported to Mexico, robbed and abandoned, and how he survived. It's quite spectacular. But having him perform at the Marsh was even better because he loved to sing like Elvis Presley. And he was totally oblivious to the fact that there were words in a play. If he wanted to go someplace like take a pee, he would leave the stage to take a pee. And then I'd have to stop the audience and say, well, Michael will be right back. Wash your hands, Michael.
That's some of the wild things. What other things have you done at the Marsh?
We did Buddha Blues, which was an interesting story about family and who and what is Buddha in all of us. I love that particular piece. And then we did When God Winked, which was an essay about the Janet Pomeroy and the Recreation Center for the Handicapped. That was an enjoyable piece to share with an audience.
How did you become a performer? We're going to talk a lot about how you were a teacher, but how did this performation come within you?
Well, I like the writing part. I'm not a very good performer. I appreciate the Dan Hoyles of the world and the Wayne Harrises of the world who emote characters, but I can't help writing. So I am always writing about something. And occasionally they transfer to the stage, but I'm a hesitant performer. I like to get on and get off. That's not good. Matter of fact, but the last show I did, Naked Zombie, I didn't even perform it. I just did it once at From, and that was enough. So it's the writing I enjoy.
Well, I heard that was a wonderful show, and I was so sorry to have to miss it.
Yeah, it was about nude modeling, so it had a little tang to it.
Was this because you yourself did some nude modeling?
Oh yeah, yes, of course. For years, I worked with Pixar and Lucas and local artists, and had the benefit of being a part of that artistic world. I learned a lot.
What did you learn?
About yourself, about the reflective quality of yourself. I think modeling is really almost a spiritual thing. You're telling a story. It's not just the facade of the body. It's really who you are, what stories you can tell, how you might tell them, particularly in modeling for like Pixar, where you're basically doing storytelling. They'll give you a chair and say, make a story with this chair. And you have a few seconds to do that.
And why does Pixar want you to do that nude?
Well, modeling is required. It's nude modeling. And I think I like finding myself and not being afraid of myself.
No, I don't mean that. Why would Pixar want you to model nude? Did you have any sense of that?
Oh yeah, I think their artists are looking for storylines. So they invite a model to be in front of them, and then they insert questions and problems for you to solve. A lot of props to work with. I've seen some of the modeling I've done translated into film. So I'm a steaming teapot, for instance, or a giant cake.
Wow.
All life.
Wow. Wow. Well, You know, one of the things that's coming up is this movie on this documentary on Saturday night about the wave and the experiment you did all those years ago.
Right.
You want to just briefly just tell us a little bit about you and the wave.
Well, this story took place in 1967. The times, they were a-changing. You know, there was an unwanted war, there was racial strife, and there was cultural change, very similar to events today. And I wanted to teach about the Holocaust, so I introduced my students this classroom experiment into the Holocaust. It was quite spontaneous, took place in 5 days, and has become the subject of international attention.
For long years.
For years, and still
years
today.
now.
It's like a ghost that won't go away. Oh, we were talking the other day, though, it was performed only once at a solo meal festival here in San Francisco. So that tells you about the power of a story that might elongate into the future.
Exactly, exactly. I think you have a video that you gave us that was just about the times and you doing a poem on top of it. Would you
Yeah.
to that now, Brian? Is it okay to cue that up? I know that we didn't discuss for sure if we were going to do it, Brian, but can you cue that up for us?
We're marching all the way to heaven, leaving all our fear behind. Marching in a funhouse near, looking for a place to hide. Marching with the devil to heaven, 1967. We're marching to end war. Uncle, he wants you. Business, making money, coffins, red, white, and blue. We're marching for freedom riders, for the right to vote. Marching to end church bombings, boys hanging from a rope. We're marching with Cesar Chavez. Don't buy those Safeway grapes. Right to form a union in these United States. Oh, Lola, join us one. We are together. We move like this. This salute is for you, Palo Alto. It's the feeling of a stranger smiling at you, someone new that wants to know you. It's the dream of a people being together, heartbeats as one, dancing together. It's the angels within us giving us wings. We're marching all the way to heaven, marching with the devil. Marching with the devil to heaven, 1967. We're marching to a lonely heart, letting our hair go long, nappy-free, bouncing, ponytailing strong. We're marching back to the land, new ways to commune with nature and each other, grooving with the moon. Can you feel it? You can do it, you can do it, you can feel it. It's the womp, womp, womp. You think you see me? But you don't see me at all. You think you see me, but you don't know me at all. You see yourself. You see yourself in me. You see yourself. That's what you want me to be. I see heaven in everyday delights. Heaven in a watching and a waiting. Heaven, no more pretending. Heaven, a moving parable. Heaven, a place to belong. All we are saying, fear leads to hate. Love is the answer. It's never too late. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Marching straight to heaven, 1967. We're marching to act out loud. The pill will set you free. Dancing naked in the park, Jimi Hendrix and me. We're marching for our mothers. Girl on the playground swing, feet kicking high to the sky. Equal chance to fly. There is a moment in time. time comes to everyone. This moment in time comes unexpected, wasn't planned. It just happens right in front of you. There is injustice. Something is wrong. Eyes follow you. What will you do? We're marching for the workers. A single mother forlorn, working 2 jobs, long hours, just to get along. Everything is changing. Nothing is clear. McNamara's band, take it to the street, weatherman. Come on, baby, light my fire. Nothing seems real. How does it feel to be without a home? The enemy on the hilltop, high-tech, Agent Orange, fragment bombs, flower children nodding, sucking on a bomb. We're marching all the way to heaven, marching with the devil to heaven. 1967. There's a fire in the girls' bathroom. Yeah, everybody running, screaming, and crying. There's a fire in the girls' bathroom. There's a fire. Business, business, business as usual. Business, business, it steals our soul. In school, it's business. No questions here. Business, no freedom, dear. Just business of who succeeds. The business of what we do. Everything is changing. Nothing to cheer. None's leaving habits. Our trail of tears. We gotta get out of here. Carpet bombing, dead singing, napalm babies. If you want a revolution, Panthers, Angels, Detroit burning, too many maybes. There are no morals or conclusions here. What did I do wrong? What did I say? Why am I living in yesterday? It's all over, Mr. Jones. Why can't it be more than a memory? All we are saying, the voice of one consensus, united student movement, venceremos, free choice, free schools, for every voice, the books we read, history told, truthfully, right to assemble, protest. We're jocks, yes, and we're kiss-ass queens. We're jocks, yes, and we're kiss-ass queens. Coverly High School, Palo Alto, California, 1967. Freedom, freedom is the voice of one. Freedom, freedom for everyone. Heaven in everyday delights. Heaven in a watching and a waiting. Heaven no more pretending. Heaven not predictable. Heaven a moving parable. Heaven a place to belong. Marching with the devil to heaven. 1967.
What's the story of you making that video? Why was it made? Who made it?
It was a poem that I had written, and I sat down one afternoon with David Denny, and when I began to recite it, I realized I was getting extremely emotional, but I just let it go, because I think it does describe, it describes today, actually. It's the chaos of the moment.
And this time, so then who made the video? Did David also make the video, or did he just do the music?
No, I'd worked for years with Damon Malloy, and he was part of the Mumbai Garden Dirk Dirksen world that I was also working with. Very grateful for Dirk and Damon Malloy. Did a lot of videos with them. They're now useful because of our Zoom world. I've got this whole library of YouTube Zoom stuff.
Yeah, so I mean, it is very powerful. And you want to talk a little bit about why, and also we can start to talk a little bit about Coverly High, and the experiment that was going on with the Black youth. You want to just talk a little bit about?
Well, yeah, let's think about the confusion of the time in 1967. Black students were coming into white high schools for the very first time as a part of a, quote, sneak out program from East Palo Alto. These Black students were defined by the school board as guests. And we were the hosts, and there was confusion. These Black young adults had no place to go, no student union, no acceptance of any kind, except the girls would take over the bathrooms and set them on fire. And that's part of that poem. But it's part of the reality of Coverly High School during that late 60s.
And how do you see that reflected today?
Oh, well, the only difference is that black and white are marching together, which I find profoundly wonderful, intriguing, possible, beautiful, hopeful. It's a unique time. I have great faith and confidence in the future because of our youth, not because of ourselves. It's our young people. It's Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the wave and your role of building the art around this experiment you did. Talk a little bit more about the experiment, if you will, and how that started to translate into the art.
Well, Stephanie, I had done a lot of what they call simulations at the time to teach using an event or a feeling as opposed to reading about it. For instance, to teach apartheid, I had students not allowed to use certain bathrooms in the school. Or to teach capitalism, I had students bring products into class and try to sell them. It's winning and losing. To teach socialism, we collected money, went out and bought food, and had a big lunch. Wasn't very exciting, but there was a lot of food. So you can teach ideas by doing things. I thought I could do the same thing teaching about the Holocaust in a one-day experiment. It's called Strength Through Discipline. And I invited the students to clear their desks, to sit with a great posture, to chant together, to move outside the room and back into the room with order and discipline. I riled about the beauty of discipline for the artist, the dancer, the basketball player, the importance of discipline. And I thought the experiment would end right there. I would come back to class the next day and talk about, well, you had an authoritative leader yesterday talking about discipline, and that's probably a kernel of what it is like in a fascist state. Everyone moving and doing something together, discipline. To my utter surprise, I returned to class the second day. All the children are sitting there with these zipper-like smiles. And I know what they're thinking. We'll just get Mr. Jones to start talking about something. We won't have a quiz. It might be fun. And I was thinking, I'm very curious about this stillness and this order in front of me. And I went to the blackboard and I wrote Strength Through Community. And I began to lecture about La Raza, a movement, a cause, people building a barn together. Community, it's being stronger than an individual. It's working, it's feeling as one with others. And then I introduced spontaneously, this is improvisational theater. David, Charlie, you're gonna love this. And I reached into my drawer and pulled out some index cards, passed them out as membership cards, marked some with the red X, telling those people they'd be basically spies to see what's going on in the room and report to me. All done spontaneously. Strength through discipline. Now, second day, strength through community. And then it unraveled, strength through action, strength through vision. Each day I had another ingredient and another phenomena. I was observing in the middle of the class, those students normally left out, not in the AP classes, maybe getting just C's. Suddenly they were important. It wasn't the two girls, Aline Levine and Wendy Brody, in the front of the class, always asking questions, always directing our classroom activity. It suddenly was this unspoken middle group that had identity and purpose and value. Even the student that sat over there, Robert, who normally would sit in his classroom during lunchtime and play checkers, always by himself, suddenly he was involved. He was my bodyguard. And as my bodyguard, he follows me into the faculty room and a faculty member looks at them and says, you don't belong here, you're a student. And this child says, no, I'm not a student, I'm a bodyguard for Mr. Jones. So that's kind of the feeling that the wave brought about and how quickly it spread. Simple answers, mass involvement, being better than our neighbors, a secret that exploded. Suddenly the class was now 40, then 50, then up to 200 in attendance.
So it went beyond your classroom into the whole school?
Oh yeah, and other schools.
Did they show up, the other schools?
Yeah, one of the fascinating things to me personally was that initially, the wave was intriguing to me because it brought into the classroom disparaging groups. Normally in high school, you've got these cliques. So the car club doesn't meet with the debate club doesn't meet with the drama club, the drama students never meet with the athletes. But there was a moment of this wave experiment when that collection of students was there and they liked being with each other. And that was fairly profound to me as a teacher.
So I keep going back to this, but does this seem to resonate with people who feel entitled not to wear masks and, that kind of the middle, is it the middle ground you might want to call it?
I don't know, Stephanie, that seems to kind of a rebellion that seems to be focused on the individual, the importance of the individual versus the group. And in this epidemic we're experiencing, that's quite dangerous, but it's a different thing. It's the fact that I can carry a gun and shoot wherever I want to. I guess that's the mentality that somewhat frightens me.
So out of this experiment, I know that you wrote, I don't know how long you wrote a short story.
I wrote the short story at the time in the Bay Area. There was a magazine, the Whole Earth Catalog by Stuart Brand. And Stuart Brand published a lot of my stories and we became good friends. And once that story popped in the Whole Earth Catalog, it was picked up by international press. And then Norman Lear became interested in it as a play, Stephanie. That's how he wanted to do it. And Norman Lear eventually did it as a teleplay, not a theatric presentation. And I'll tell you a side story. Norman Lear was after the public rights to the story. And Stuart Brand, because of his magazine being under copyright, sold me the story for $1.
So you then had the rights instead of him.
There are many heroes in my life, and he's one of them. And you're one of them too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, but then this story was what, 1967, 68?
Oh, interesting. That's when it happened. But it was like I expected when I introduced the students to the reality of Hitler and the Holocaust. I said, I suspect you'll never talk about this. Just as in Germany, there was a hesitation to talk about what had gone on and who was responsible. That happened with this group of students. And this is great, Stephanie. No one's ever asked that question. For 10 years, it was silence. And one day I was over in Berkeley buying underwear, and the student, Steve Coniglio, walks up to me and gives me the salute. And I went home that night and wrote it, gave it to Stuart Brand, and the rest is history.
But you didn't, so mostly you did that short story, but then everyone else took it on. Is that correct?
When Norman Lear did the teleplay, that teleplay was novelized by Todd Strasser. And that book by Todd Strasser is read internationally, required reading in Israel, required reading in Germany, millions of copies sold. And it's the basis for a lot of plays in Europe today.
So what happened? So I know I'm just leading you up here, Ron. So at a certain point, you decided you did it once at Solo Mio.
Right.
You put together your own solo performance at
Right.
Solo Mio.
Right.
And then how many years later did you decide to do the musical? Because I know, explain, you gave the rights to everyone else to do it, right? You let people do it all around the world.
Well, that was a privilege. I found out that the publishing company was being very scandalous. So I went to court with my lawyer, Paul Newman, what a great Hollywood name. And we sued and won a case which gave me the theater rights. And once I had theater rights, I could give them freely to any school that wanted it, which I did for years. So being a part of the Marsh, the thought came to me, why don't we do a musical? We have the Marsh Youth Theater. We have this legacy. We have this place. We have this collection of phenomenal writers, musicians, artists. And it came together rather quickly. Blessed, Cliff Myatt, think about, director, Fred Harris, David Denny, who was with the Steve Miller Band, Kathy Peck, who sang with the Contractions, and the Marsh community. What a blessing. So I think that play, Stephanie, that play is the best work I've ever been involved in.
Really?
No.
And my baby daughter was in it.
Yeah, I know.
We can, why don't we show a little, we're not gonna show the whole thing, but a shorter snippet of the wave when it was performed as a musical by Marsh Youth Theater.
Marsh Youth Theater.
Philip Neal and Mark Hancock decided to do a documentary. They began to go around the country, and oftentimes I'd be with them, interviewing their classmates. So for the first time, by the year 2009, I had access not only to what I was experiencing in the wave, but what was happening with the students. And I used that information to construct the wave musical.
You think you see me, but you don't see me at all. You think you know me, but you don't know me at all. You see yourself in me, you see what you want me to be. You think you see me, but you don't see me at all. See me at all, see me at all.
You think I'm invisible? Just stand here. But I can touch you. Just walk away.
You can't see me at all. You think I'm happy here in the front row? Just goes to show you what you don't know. You can't see me at all. You think I'm black and visible when I hear a couple movie film. You can't see me at all. Your mind is all in your body creation, ironic equation. You can't see me at all. You see yourself in me. You see what you want me to be. You think you see me, but you don't see me at all. See me at all, see me at all.
The Marsh Theater wanted to do a wave, but it was very complicated and expensive to mount something like that. So I got Mercy High School, my granddaughter was going to Mercy, to participate. So this lovely partnership between a Catholic high school and the Marsh Theater on Valencia Street to construct and assemble this play. And they used students from a variety of sources: public school, private school, students being homeschooled. This great collection of kids from many different backgrounds became the foundation for the Marsh production.
There is a moment in time when danger stands you in the way. You step out of place. This moment that is here today, will you speak it out loud? Will you pray it away? This moment, the choice you must make, more silence and fear, or risk that will take you to freedom. Freedom. How will you, what will you do?
One of the things I loved about the play was to explore there is a moment, and there are a couple moments in the play where every child there gets to make a decision. What will I do? And those are very clear moments for the audience as well. I think the audience walks away from the Wave musical with this troubling discussion in their minds about how do we treat one another? How do we behave towards each other? How do we live a good life? It's there. This moment, there is a moment. Each of us have these moments in our life when we can act to help someone or simply be afraid and stand back and maybe do nothing. It's someone else's problem. No, it's all of our problems.
Okay, this time with a little feeling.
Feel the power of the leader, follow us, the unbeliever, it's the power.
Now that's more like it. Look at the power.
Feel the power, you're the leader, follow us, the unbeliever, it's the power. Feel the power, you're the leader, follow us, the unbeliever, it's the power.
Right, good.
If you feel it, follow us, get a movement on our bus. Come on.
Yeah.
On the line of promotion, can't stop this train in motion. Do you feel it? Do you get it? If you do, you won't forget it. Come on. Do you feel it? Do you get it? If you do, you won't forget it.
Certainly brings back a moment now, doesn't it, Ron?
It sure does.
So this weekend, so since then there's been a film that was like a The Die WELLE, have the German film
Yeah, it's a German feature film, Die WELLE.
Die WELLE. Thank you, Ron. And now we have coming up this
And now that
weekend.
feature film's being translated into a Netflix series. We are.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Does that have something to do with you?
No, they did a really smart thing. They took the premise of the idea of students taking on the world, and they make it very contemporary. So it comes out of the wave, but it's really a contemporary story of students fighting for, sanity in our world.
How does it feel to be the burst of this? I know it was not a comfortable thing for you. I think you were embarrassed by it, which is why it took you so long to come out with it again. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not proud of it at all. It was a big mistake. A teacher should never have placed their students in danger. But the reality is I liked it. I liked the order. I liked the discipline. I liked the adulation. So it allowed me to check myself.
So, but that's a lot of why. Yeah.
But you realize, Stephanie, that women were the ones that caught it and challenged it. 2 students in the class, 2 women, Aline Levine and Wendy Brody. But my wife, Deanna, she's the one that said, hold on, kid. I don't like where you're going. You've lost your playfulness. You've lost your kindness. This is wrong. You better stop it. So I'm grateful to women.
That's a good thing to be grateful to, I think. So.
Yeah.
But we have this, and also I want to say, if anyone has any questions for Ron, please put them in the chat room and we'll get to them in a little bit. I haven't, tell me, so this weekend, there was a documentary made. Tell us about this documentary. It's called The Invisible Line. It was made by Emmanuel Rothstein. Is that how you pronounce it?
Your audience will enjoy meeting Emmanuel. He lives in Munich. He was intrigued with the wave. He had read it as a child and knew it had consequence for what happened in Germany yesterday, what's happening in Germany today, what's happening in the United States today. So he came over to San Francisco, grabbed some of the kids that were in the wave, went to Coverly High School. It still exists. It's like the skeleton of a building that's there. And he was able to film the actual room and then invite many of the students back for a question and answer. So it's an exciting documentary through his eyes, very useful.
So why is there, what do you think the whole reason is for doing this documentary, on top of everything else that's been done about the wave?
I think it's the time, Stephanie. I think we're in a moment in time where we are approaching fascism. Our leadership in Europe and in the United States. It's a frightening time. So it's time to examine how easily we become victim of our own short answers and our leaders that give us promises they can't keep, and the need to be better than a leader that says we need to be racist and superior to our neighbors is profoundly frightening to me. My mother's Jewish, so when I've traveled to Germany, I feel something, and I feel it now today the same way. We're in that moment. Vote, like Wayne Harris says, vote.
Vote, right, to make sure we get what we hope we want, right? And not what we don't want.
Civility, help. There's one thing happening well right now is people are helping each other, and I see that and appreciate that. There is a gentleness in the air, respectful to how we're caring for each other. So I feel pretty good about where we're going.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about this documentary this weekend.
The Invisible Line, I think that's what Emmanuel Rothstein is giving us. We all have that chance to cross that invisible line, to think we're better than our neighbors, we're better than everybody else, we have all the answers. Or we can cross a line that says we're going to help our neighbors, be a part of a community.
And that's going to be shown in the documentary?
The Invisible Line describes how easy it is we give up our freedom for the thought of being superior to our neighbors. It's a profound lesson, how quickly that happens, how easily that happens. One of the problems is there's no democracy. So that's our check and balance. And we need that in every institution, whether it be the theater or the school or the corporate office. How do we act together to solve problems together? not waiting for one simple answer. You're solving problems, Stephanie, with your broadcasts like this. My goodness gracious, every night, girl? Come on.
Every night a different problem we try to solve.
No, but it's fascinating. You saw a problem and you acted, and you now have, it's almost like you've created NBC local. It's wonderful. It is phenomenal. You've always given voice. You have a legacy of giving voices to those that have not been heard. And now through this medium, you're saying, look out, folks. There's a lot of voices out there. They have a lot to tell us about life.
They certainly do, that's for sure. And I have to say, it's been like a creative spurt for the Marsh. And I'm very thankful, not for the terrible pandemic, but also this kind of silver lining. And, we know, theaters hopefully will eventually open, but I don't think this part of the Marsh or the way we're living will completely go away.
No, I think you're part of a digital theater now. As my granddaughter who's teaching high school, it's a digital high school now as well.
I saw a question in the chat room. It's T. Vernon. Hi, Ron. I'm a former Cougar, a teacher, and a Marsh performer. I was wondering how you debriefed the simulation with your students, and how did different students respond to the debrief?
Great question. There was no debrief. I wasn't capable. I just could not pull that together. We sat in silence for a long time. We tried to find ways to empower ourselves. For instance, Robert, the student that was so lonely and became the bodyguard, he liked to fix things. So I began to bring into the classroom things for him to fix. Typewriters, no one knows what a typewriter is, but he became a fixer of things. Many of the students became involved in an anti-war protest, and that gave them a life and a purpose. And some probably went into a shadow of their own existence. I can't predict what happened to everyone, but the invisible line interviews and has students talking about that very subject. How did they survive? What did they think about the experiment in the end?
Can you give us one example?
Yeah, one example is Steve Conigli. He always sat right over there, third row, seat 5. He was a great kid because he'd convert every single classroom exercise into a musical. And he's the kid that saluted me over in Berkeley and spawned the whole story. Well, he survived by being an actor. Theater is a great vehicle to explore ideas and people and causes. One of the students became an international chef, Wendy Brody. Aline Levine is a psychiatrist at Pelican Bay. I know that Mark Hancock's a great example of what happened to the students in the class. Mark is now studying for his doctorate in the Holocaust. He's dedicated his life to understanding why this experiment happened and why did it happen in Germany and why might it happen here and how do we stand away from it? How do we make a better life for ourselves? So I still see these students, which is quite a blessing for a teacher. We're still Zooming and interacting with the internet and following the fact of life and death and children and hope, music, everything that makes life valuable.
Well, the debrief, that would have been after, but how did you stop the experiment?
Oh, yeah, but I didn't have a debrief giving them an answer to things. But the final exercise was an actual rally where we went through our routine of strength through discipline, strength through community, boom, boom, boom. And then I introduced them to what I said would be the next leader of the country and a leader of the third wave movement across the country. And onto the screen came Hitler and the Holocaust. And then we're no better or worse than that German experience. We're just like them in many ways, in how we have to honor life and honor our friends and our neighbors and love your family, love this place called life, because it's not there in the Holocaust. It's not there in the fascism.
You had said that you had about a minute piece you might want to do for us. Is that still the case?
Oh, I think, yeah. it was in the play, and I'll just repeat it because I think it's the essence of the play, and it's the essence of where we are today. It was a lyric written for the Wave musical. There is a moment in time that comes to everyone, this moment in time. It's not expected. Something is wrong. Injustice right in front of you. What will you do this moment that is here today? Will you speak out loud or pray it away? This moment, the choice you must make for silence and fear, or risk that will take you to freedom. Freedom, what will you do? There is a moment. I think we're in that moment.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful song. I sing it all the time, Ron.
Oh, it's a nice, yeah. A lot of the music
Beautiful
on
song.
that Wave was perfect. It was so great.
It was. And after we did it at the Marsh, they did it at Mercy High School.
Yeah, but it was done as a play at Mercy. It was not done as a, oh, we did it as a musical. You're right. We also did thanks to the Marsh Youth Theater, we did several plays. Phenomenal, wonderful. It was so great being at the Marsh Youth Theater. Wayne Harris, Liz Mechanich, Christian Wilburn, the students. Wow, what a blessing. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Well, yes. And so then we have a question about what were your, did you do some 1960s activism?
Oh yeah, I went from Cumberland High School to Stanford University, where I directed an alternative university at Stanford. But I was fired because I introduced gay studies. No gay studies at Stanford University. And then I went to Mount Zion Hospital and taught in a psychiatric ward. That was not too successful because I wrote about suicides. That became Kids Called Crazy. And then I thought I probably have a fundamental flaw, very damaging, but I found myself at the Recreation Center for the Handicapped. And Janet Pomeroy said, God has sent you, Mr. Jones. And maybe it happened because I stayed there for 35 years. I loved it. We did plays. We had Theater Unlimited. Talk about plays. We did plays on every subject you can imagine, from brushing your teeth to dating to flying saucers to Willard Joins the Army, a true play about mentally disabled being taken out of Napa State Hospital and serving in World War II. No one's ever written about that. 10,000 people were taken out of mental hospitals and served in the military in World War II.
Really? What happens after they finished?
Oh, just like what happened to women, Rosie the Riveter, they were told to go back to their institutions.
But did they have more or less PTSD?
Who knows? That's the invisible quality. Racism, disparity, economic injustice, these are invisible. The disabled are in that same world of always being in the shadows.
And at the Janet Pomeroy Center, tell us a little bit about the basketball team.
Well, that became a play at the Marsh as well. The team that never lost a game. And
how do you think I know about these things, Ron? I saw all the plays.
That became a movie too down in LA. We took the whole basketball team down to LA. It was phenomenal. This team, we played everybody, union workers, Chinese consulate, newspapers, Pickle Family Circus, the mayor's office, because people found that they could come to the center and just experience freedom and pure theater. When basketball becomes theater, it's for everybody.
Just like bingo, I guess.
Yeah, I've been a lucky soul.
Well, how did you become this lucky soul? What was the strings that built Ron Jones?
I think it was my parents, to be honest, my grandparents. My whole family lived on 46th Avenue, and they always took in strangers. So in my lifetime, I've always lived with people that were kind of discarded. My grandparents took in a World War II guy that came back and was very damaged. Deanna and I took in kids that were just beat up. My daughter takes in kids that have been beat up. I think that's the blessing, that we're not afraid of strangers, and we find strength in what they bring to us. Oh, my grandfather ran a burlesque house. That explains everything.
Does it?
North Beach, President Follies. So my around my grandfather's and grandmother's table on 46th Avenue, there'd be wrestlers and there'd be fan ladies, strippers. And I always thought that was normal.
Wait, so they stayed alive for your youth?
Yeah, all through my childhood. Yes, absolutely.
What, tell us a story of some of the stories you found during that time.
Well, my grandmother and Willie Acker, the man that lived in the basement, they probably killed the lady that lived next door. It was a mercy killing, but she was a crazy lady, and they probably killed her to save her. That was one story. And then Willie Acker, who
Wait. What's the story?
Oh, it was performed at the Marsh.
Well, tell us. Not everybody saw it.
Oh, well, it's a true account. Willie Acker came back from the war. He was like a telephone pole. He couldn't speak. He was pretty muted, but he was generous and kind. And we figured out that the lady next door was starving. So we began to take her boxes of Cheerios and place it at her gate, ring the bell. It turned out one day we got access to her house, and she was a hoarder, and her face was infested with sores, and she put her dog in the stove and burned the dog. She was crazy. Yeah, she was crazy. And we tried to get her help, Social Security, no one would help her. Well, I think Willie Acker and my grandmother killed her.
Why do you think that?
I think it was a mercy killing.
Just because one day you found her dead?
No, a policeman came to my grandmother's door and said, "Do you know the lady next door?" And my grandmother and I were marched over there. And I'd been in this lady's house, and I saw the consequence, and the house was suddenly clean. And that's something my grandmother would do. She would clean the house, and this woman was a hoarder, and she was not in good shape. She did not eat, for instance, and she was in great pain and great suffering. So maybe, and I knew my grandfather had a gun in the basement because of his work at the President Follies. And I knew the gun was gone. And at the same time, I was building a bomb shelter in my grandmother's backyard because it was duck and cover time. So my best friend, Bobby Ensign, and I were digging this bomb shelter. And when I came back one day, the bomb shelter was filled in. That's where the gun is, I suspect.
So the woman was killed by a gun.
Yeah.
Um,
And she was dressed in my grandmother's best dress.
oh, that really seals the deal, doesn't it?
That said a lot.
So you think that your grandmother cleaned up after she was dead because she never would have let her clean up when she
Right.
was alive?
That's all supposition. But I drive by that house every day and think about that. It's on 46th Avenue.
Jeez Louise.
These Louises, life is a strange adventure, isn't it?
A different form of euthanasia. We just kind of usually consider that just for our pets, huh?
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when you're a writer. You write these things out, and then they become embossed in your mind. I'm writing a great book right now. You're gonna love it.
Tell us.
It's called The Vacant Lot. I went to Missouri one year, and I met some Black students, and they showed me a burned out block, and they showed me a place of a lynching. One of these young students had their brother lynched, and they sent me a corresponding newspaper articles about the lynching and about their feelings. So I've never written fiction before, but I've written a fiction account about these young students and the events that surrounded them in Boone County, Missouri.
So that's what you're writing now?
Yeah.
You're writing The Vacant Lot about this.
Yeah.
How far into it are you?
Done.
You're done.
Deanna's laying it out now. We're putting the photographs and newspaper articles embedded with the text. But again, it's fiction.
How many books have you written?
Oh, I've written a lot, maybe 20, maybe. Most of them, this is important for your audience. Most of the books I write, I self-publish and just give them to friends. I don't have a publisher. I don't have an editor. I have a theater agent and a movie agent, but I do not have a literary agent. I've never had one. Most of the books I write, I publish, and then I figure out what to do with them next. Like I wrote about this suicide, this killing we were just talking about, in a book called Life in the Sunset, but no one's ever seen it. It's never been out in the public, but you can go to Mel's restaurant and buy it.
Any Mel's or just the,
No,
how many Mel's are left?
Just the Mel's on Geary, old school.
Do they have all your books or just that?
Oh, just that one. But it's interesting. They help sponsor that book too. They help sponsor a lot of stuff. They're friends. It's good to have a diner as your best friend.
Do you go there a lot?
I used to go there every day, but now it's closed because of the pandemic. Although you can still drive your car in and get service. And I've written a lot about Mel's, and particularly some of the waitresses and some of the people that work there. I really honor that working class community.
Amazing, Ron. So what else do you want to tell us? We're almost coming to an end here. We have a few more minutes. What else would you like our audience to hear?
I'd like you to support the Marsh. Go to that tip jar and make it work, because it's such an important institution. It's up to us to keep these institutions alive. If we don't do it, I don't think anyone else is going to step in. I don't expect the government or some survivor, some great corporate hand. It's little people. It's you and I.
Well, thank you. Thank you. What else? What else do you want to tell us besides supporting us, which I think is a really, really good idea?
Hey, well, I think your International Solo Festival is going to be so wonderful, especially if you get some international contributors. I'm really looking forward to that. That is huge.
Are you planning to perform?
Yeah, I might do the wave. I've been thinking about it a lot, because I could just do this. Okay, sit down over there, Norman. You please. I could address it just like that classroom experiment, and then the audience would get the feeling of what it's just like to be in that classroom. I think I can pull that off.
So you think you can pull? So you can pull it off like on video? You think?
Yeah, it's pure video show. See, David Ford and people are working on this. How to use that little proscenium there, how to space into it, how to bring into it. It's alive. I like it. It's unique. We have to learn how to use it, but it's there to use. I'm excited, girl.
Well, we're excited. You have to. Oh, I think you applied, but I don't think it went through. I think you have to apply again.
I don't think I paid. I'm afraid to click pay buttons.
I don't think you don't need to pay to apply. You pay later.
Okay, I'll figure it out. I'll get back at it.
You can always call us and we'll help you do it. Not me, but Brian, because I probably couldn't help you.
I'll take another crack at it.
We want you to take another crack at it. We
Thanks,
do,
Dave.
we do. Well, anything else? Tell me one more thing.
Look forward to Saturday, because you'll get a chance to meet Emmanuel, and you'll get a chance to see his work, which is really neat. Good stuff.
Yeah, people are asking about how to see the documentary. So we are doing the American premiere of it on Saturday night at 7:30.
Right.
Do you know how long it is, the documentary?
I think it's long. I think it's an hour, Stephanie.
So we'll have about an hour documentary. Then after that, Ron will be back on with Emmanuel and me, and we'll be doing a Q&A. So if anybody wants to come back on Saturday, then we can have some questions after seeing the documentary. We'll all be around to answer your questions.
Let me add one more source of information. Mark Hancock, who is a student in the WAVE experiment, has maintained a website all these years. So if anyone really wants to know what has happened, what happened in Hong Kong, what happened in New Delhi, get a hold of his website, www.thewavehome.com. www.thewavehome.com has a lot of information.
Well, that'll be great.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to show, I'm going to say a few things, and then we're going to show at the very end, for everybody who wants, a little trailer from the documentary.
Oh, cool.
At the end of this. But meanwhile, I want to say thank you, Ron, so much for all your help over the years, your incredible artistry, your performances, you teaching our youth program, you being great to my daughter when she needed it. You have been you're just like this. You and Deanna and your whole family, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful support of the Marsh, the community, and some of us broken and healthy people.
Well, keep the marsh alive. We need to
Thank
have
you.
Kenny, David, Charlie, Echo Brown. Come on, look at all the people you've.
A lot of people over 31 years. A lot of people. A lot of people.
Beth McLaughlin, Addie Laddie.
Yeah. All the people. People.